Good morning, everybody. We're going to... There we go. Good morning, everybody. We're going to start here now. We have one member, Councillor Manette, is not available today. The other two missing members are Councillor Wilkinson and Councillor El Shantiri, who advise us they will be late for the meeting, but the clerk's office assures us we can go ahead with the bare quorum that we have. So welcome to the meeting of our Audit Committee for Thursday, the 27th of October, 2016. Any declarations of interest from committee members? No, seeing none. Thank you. And confirmation of the regular minutes of the 8th of, minutes number 8, sorry, of the June 20th meeting. Are these minutes confirmed? Have you had a chance to look at them? Yeah. You're good? Confirmed. Thank you, gentlemen. There's also confidential minutes there of the same meeting. They've been distributed to you in an envelope. Please ensure that you return these envelopes to the coordinator by the end of the meeting, and if you have any concerns with them. So let's just jump into the agenda. Item number 1 is the status update. For the Audit Committee, inquiries and motions for the period of the 14th of October 2016. I have a question before I ask if it's received. I'd like to ask Mr. Auditor General for an update on the one to do with the whether or not we can look at the registry for social housing.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As you know, we'll be coming back to the Audit Committee the end of November, beginning of December with our annual work plan. And our intent is to have an answer specifically as to whether or not we'll be looking at the rent registry. There's still a little bit of research that I'm waiting to complete, waiting for information, and I expect that will be done before we come forward with our annual work plan.
Excellent news. Thank you, sir. Anybody, is the item received, or anybody have any questions about the other ones? Okay, received. Thank you. Item number 2, Office of the Auditor General, report on audit follow-ups and detailed audit follow-up reports. The Auditor General has a presentation, so if you're, also we have a motion first. We also have a motion to add supporting documentation pertaining to this report. Vice Chair Kluche, if you'd like to read the motion.
Thank you, Chair. Whereas the supporting documentation titled Office of the Auditor General, Report on Audit Follow-ups and Detailed Audit Follow-up Reports. Therefore, be it resolved that the Audit Committee approve the addition of this document for consideration by the Committee at today's meeting pursuant to Section 89(3) of the Procedures Bylaw, being Bylaw 2014-441.
Is this motion carried? Carried. Thank you very much. Mr. Hughes, your presentation, are you ready?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Merci, Monsieur le Président. Bonjour, Monsieur le Président et membres du Comité. Good morning, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. I'd like to begin by introducing the Office of the Auditor General staff. To my left is my Executive Assistant, Inez Earl. To my right are the 2 Deputy Auditor Generals, Sonia Brennan and Ed Miner. Seated behind us, we have 3 senior auditors, Suzanne Bertrand, Louise Prue, and Vivian Kay, and Auditor Janet Onyango, and our cooperative student from the Accounting Master's Program at Carleton University, Ensign Z. Today, we're going to give you a brief reminder of the audit process. We'll talk to you about the purpose of the audit follow-up. We'll take you through those results, identify the issues, and of course, we'll have a conclusion. En assurant le suivi des vérifications, le Bureau de vérification générale d'Ottawa se conforme aux pratiques exemplaires. Le processus de vérification comporte 4 étapes. Premièrement, la planification. Deuxièmement, l'enquête sur le terrain. Ça, c'est l'étape où on trouve les vérificateurs dans les bureaux des ministères. La production du rapport et finalement le suivi de vérification. Et ça, c'est le sujet de cette comité aujourd'hui. The Office of the Auditor General follows best practices of the international audit community by including the practice of audit follow-ups. Now, the audit process has 4 distinct phases: the planning phase and the fieldwork phase, the reporting phase, and the follow-up phase. The fieldwork phase is where our auditors are in the field looking at the work of the department. And of course, the final phase, the follow-up phase, is reason why we're here today. Okay. The Office of the Auditor General conducts audit follow-ups on all of our audits after we've allowed enough time for the department to take appropriate action to implement the recommendations. That generally means that we wait about 2 to 3 years after the audit is completed. Our work in the follow-up audit ensures that the required measures that were promised by management and approved by council have been implemented. Someone might ask, what's the difference between an audit and a follow-up? Well, the audits themselves improve management practices. We look for operational efficiencies, and where we can, we identify possible economies. And even more so when we can quantify those economies. The difference is that the audit follow-up identifies management's progress on the implementation of those recommendations. The audit follow-up and the presentation today, we're not intended to provide an assessment of each individual recommendation. We did that when we presented the initial report to the committee some years ago. Rather, it presents our overall evaluation of progress made to date across all completed audits. Should the members of the committee or council wish to have a more detailed discussion of specific follow-ups, our staff are available to do so. Les suivis qui sont le sujet de cette réunion aujourd'hui sont la vérification des centres de services à la clientèle, vérification des cartes de crédit municipales, vérification du processus d'évaluation de l'admissibilité au programme Ontario au travail. Et toutes les vérifications sont effectuées en 2012. So I can say, and it isn't always the case when we come to the committee to talk about follow-ups, but we can say that management has addressed significantly all of the issues that were raised in the audits to improve the practices. It, to us, demonstrates that management is certainly committed to the audit process. However, one audit where progress on recommendations was impacted by provincial change was the audit of Ontario Works, and that was because of the implementation of the new provincially mandated software known as SAMS. And you'll hear the details about that in a moment. We've categorized each of the audit follow-ups based upon the following criteria. We categorize an audit as showing solid progress if 50% or more of the recommendations were evaluated at 75 to 100% complete. Literal no progress is, we term an audit showing little or no progress when 50% or more of the recommendations are evaluated at 0 to 49%. And I'm pleased to say that in this case, all of the audits exhibited solid progress. So at this point, I'd like to turn the presentation over to the Deputy Auditor General who worked on these follow-ups, and that would be, we'll start with Ed Miner and then move to Sonia Brennan.
Thank you, Ken. I'd just like to talk about for a moment here, the audit of the Client Service Center and our follow-up on that. The 2012 audit of the Client Service Center covered a number of areas and made 17 recommendations. They included streamlining operations, carrying out a risk assessment, and improving cash handling procedures. Our follow-up found that management has made good progress in implementing the recommendations from the original audit. Implementation of 15 of the 17 recommendations made in the audit was assessed as being either substantially complete or complete. These included 4 recommendations related to improving the efficiency of operations. However, we did find that improvements continue to be required in order to provide security and accountability around cash and other valuable assets. The 2 partially implemented recommendations relate to complying with the cash handling policy and the management of inventory items such as marriage license forms.
The original audit of corporate credit cards conducted in 2012 this program was established as a cost-effective method of paying for low dollar value purchases while maintaining acceptable levels of control and accountability. Overall, it was found at the time of the audit that the program was well administered and supported by finance. 13 recommendations were made and accepted by management, including improving the accuracy of tax coding, ensuring that cards were deactivated promptly when employees left the organization, and expanding the use of credit cards in lieu of checks or petty cash to take advantage of savings. Our follow-up found that management made good progress in implementing the recommendations. 12 of the 13 recommendations were assessed as substantially complete or complete. At the time of the follow-up, only 1 partially completed item remained that required additional effort, and that was to complete training for staff. Management committed to have this completed by the end of this calendar year. Thank you.
In 2012, we audited the Ontario Works eligibility assessment process. Ontario Works is a provincial social assistance program delivered by the city on a cost-shared basis. At the time of the audit, the province's share of most program expenditures was 80%, and it's increased since then. The original audit made 18 recommendations. These included improving the documentation of eligibility decisions taken by staff, analyzing opportunities to reduce the number of FTEs, improving efficiency through the better use of the provincial system SDMT and its planned replacement SAMS. When the original audit was undertaken, city staff were using SDMT to deliver Ontario Works. Between the original audit and the follow-up, the province replaced SDMT with SAMS. As you likely know, the provincial implementation of SAMS did not go well. This impacted our follow-up in 2 ways. First, some of the functionality that we had recommended the city to take advantage of was not there in the SAMS system. And second, in order to reduce the increased workload associated with the system, the province instructed delivery agents, such as the city, to stop carrying out a number of procedures, including some internal controls. For our purposes, when management took action to implement the recommendations we had made in the SDMT environment, but they were unable to do so as well in the SAMS environment because they were either instructed not to or they're using temporary workaround procedures, we assessed those recommendations as being complete. Together with other non-system related recommendations, this resulted in 14 of the 18 recommendations being assessed as substantially or fully complete. We assessed 1 recommendation related to sick leave management as being partially complete, and we assessed 3 recommendations as having little or no action taken. All 3 of those recommendations were related to the city's use of the SAMS system. Thank you.
En conclusion, Monsieur le Président, les suivis sont des pratiques exemplaires. C'est un élément important au processus de vérification. Et c'est obvieux que la direction à mettre en œuvre les recommandations approuvées par le Conseil. In conclusion, Mr. Chair, audit follow-ups are a best practice, and it's an important part of the audit process here at the City of Ottawa. Management is committed to implementing council-approved recommendations, and we're certainly pleased with the progress. At this point, I'd like to acknowledge the appreciation and continued cooperation appreciation of the continued cooperation that we received from the city manager, managers, and staff. Thank you, Mr. Chair. That concludes our presentation.
Thank you very much, Mr. Auditor General. We appreciate it. And now we'll go to questions. I also appreciate the work of your audit team. Councillor DeRose.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, to you, and thank you very much for the report this morning. I have a few questions. One of them is, Mr. Hugh, you mentioned an original audit recommended closing some centers and saving of $824,000 per year. Is that was done, or what are we doing with that?
The original audit did recommend analyzing the workload and consider closing a number of centers. Management decided to keep all the centers open, but what they did was they reassigned some staff and they assigned other tasks to the staff working in those centers to more fully utilize their time. So all of the centers did remain open.
Did remain open, and we're still looking into the saving, or did I miss your answer?
Mr. Chair, through you to Councillor DeRose, I think the response that staff gave to the recommendation was to increase the activity that these individuals that were in these lower activity client service centers. What changes were made within the department to realize those savings? Management didn't provide that to us, but perhaps that's best directed to City Manager.
Thank you. I'm really happy to hear that we're not closing centers, so that's good. My other question, Mr. Hugh, is it was mentioned that three of 6 areas that was in the cash handling policy and procedures were met. Do you have any timeline on the other 50% when we're gonna will be completed?
As far as the definite timeline, it's probably best to refer that to management, Mr. Chair.
Ms. Greenfield will answer the question.
Mr. Chair, all the recommendations are complete now.
Thank you. I have one more question concerning the credit card and saving. Is the city continuing to use the credit card in order to take advantage of the saving identified in the original audit? Are we being proactive? I know I saw in your report that 12 of we're being proactive and 12 of 13 of the recommendation are followed, but are we keeping this practice and making sure we're encouraging everyone to using these methods so we can have a lot of saving?
Mr. Chair, through to Councillor DeRose, in the follow-up, we saw that the actions, the Finance Department started a program to encourage expanding the use of the cards. We did see that they had monitored and measured this progress, and they were making some progress in terms of increasing the use of the cards. Management could perhaps provide an update to that. That was there's a time lag between our follow-up and current date, but they're continuing that program to the end of this year.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councillor DeRose. Vice Chair Cloutier.
Thank you, Chair. Merci, Monsieur le Vérificateur général. C'est un bon rapport je veux souligner le soutien, le partenariat dans cet environnement-là de vérification entre le directeur municipal et le personnel de la ville et le bureau du vérificateur général pour bien gérer, pour bien administrer les fonds de la ville et les fonds de nos contribuables. Donc, merci de votre travail and thank you, Mr. City Manager and all your staff for their cooperation with the Auditor General. So a couple of questions. On the third part of the audit for the SAMS issue, which I recognize is a complex in an audit environment, and the Ontario Works, you said that you might go back to review the Ontario Works eligibility again, and when SAM is more functional, more normalized, if you will. Usually you don't do that. Why are you doing it this time in this audit follow-up? Why did I read that you might go back and do another follow-up, or?
Thank you, Chair. The Ontario Works SAMS implementation, Ontario government SAMS implementation created a number of challenges for the city. And as part of that, there were a number of what we saw as key controls that were suspended. For example, they used to be called participation agreements, where the recipient sort of set out their plan for getting off of OW. And they've since been renamed to called outcome plans. And as part of the SAMS implementation, the decision was taken that when these expired, they didn't have to be renewed. So as an example of what we saw as some key controls that were required for the eligibility process that were temporarily suspended. So as such, it was very difficult to know for sure how it was going to be working in the future. So the idea was once things had normalized and they were back to implementing a full suite of controls, that would be an appropriate time to come back and visit again.
What do you think the timeline is for that? Can you give us any idea? Or?
On that, I would have to defer to management to tell you the truth as for the exact status of the, it's been a bit since we were in doing our field work on follow-up.
Okay. So just follow up to that, SAM was implemented about 2 years ago, and Ontario Works the delivery is in a temporary state, I think. So let me ask the question, how long does that temporary state last?
Well, we conducted our field work for the follow-up in November 2015, and you'll notice we have management's most recent assessment of the completion of the implementation status on the recommendations, and that's as of September 2016. So in their view, the implementation statuses are further along. So I'm not sure, because we haven't been in, I'm not sure exactly where they stand as far as going to more permanent.
Mr. Chair, I think what our normal process would be, first of all, this has not happened to my knowledge before, but in instances like this, it makes sense that we liaise with management to find out when operations have returned to normal and allow them to operate in that normal environment for a reasonable period. Certainly a year is a reasonable period. And then we would go in and complete what we think are the most important parts of the follow-up that we weren't able to do. So once we've determined that things are back to normal and that that they've had a reasonable time, certainly at least 12 months to operate within normal operations, then we would return for that follow-up.
This might be to city staff. Getting to that state of normalcy as we're talking, is that in our hands or is that in the provincial government's hands? Because I know it's their software, they rolled it out. Are we waiting for them to provide updates to the software, or is it an internal?
Good morning. I'm Janice Burrell. I'm the General Manager of Social Services, Community Social Services. The province has advised us that it's a 2-year work plan. We're doing fixes as we speak. We did 156 in July. There's another rollout that's happening in November. They're saying that their work plan will continue until December 2017, and I have no doubt that it'll be reviewed, during that time as well.
They, the province?
The province, yes.
Okay. You said 156?
Fixes and changes. in July, just as for an example.
To the software.
That's right, and there's going to be more changes rolled out in November, and that will continue until such time as they feel all the fixes are completed. And at this point, the projection is December 2017.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Councillor Cloutier. A couple of questions from me, if I may. Councillor Deroux alluded to some of the items that were not completed, sorry, I'm struggling for words here. At the start of your report on the summary and the assessment of overall progress made to date, there was 3 items that showed little to no action. I think it's a very good thing that almost all of them are either complete or substantially complete, but I think I'd like to ask the question about those 3, and I believe they are related to the audit of the works one, if I'm correct. And in your answer, I'd like you also to address the point that Councillor Deroux was going to about sometimes you'll show things not quite complete yet, and it's because that's the point in time that you went in to look, but by the time we're here at committee, they could be further along, if you don't mind. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. The 3 recommendations that we had assessed as having no action taken on it had to do, were all related to the use of SAMs. There was the use of SAMs to improve case management. There was looking at improved efficiency with the SAM system to reduce the number of FTEs. And there was the use of SAMs to reduce a spreadsheet that was being used for reporting on the eligibility review program. So we made those 3 recommendations in anticipation of the SAM system being up and operational. When we conducted our follow-up, that was in November of 2015, and we went in and we asked management the status of their actions, and they said they hadn't taken any action in those 3 instances due to the SAM system being underway. So in September of 2016, we asked management for their latest status on that, and the response that came back was these items were, in their mind, fully complete because the system in the foreseeable future was not going to be getting any better, and the functionality that we had suggested that they use and the FTE improvements were not going to materialize anytime soon. So that's why in 2015, we saw that, and we saw there was no action. In 2016, management's conclusion was that these were fully implemented, as fully implemented as they were ever going to be.
Great, thank you. Now, my next question is: in June of this year, the Auditor General reported on the review of the Client Service Center Laurier cash handling process and cash discrepancies. Is this report covering similar or the same items as the report we're looking at here today?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, it would be correct to say that this audit report covered, and the associated follow-up covered some of the same issues that were addressed in that fraud and waste review that was provided in June.
Thank you. Have the issues been rectified or well on their way to being rectified, in your opinion?
Well, we will go back to confirm the implementation of the corrective actions taken in the Client Service Center, but management has indicated that they have been rectified.
Good. Let me put that question to you a different way, too. Has there been any further issues that you're aware of?
Mr. Chair, there have been a couple of other issues, and the Office of the Auditor General with management have investigated those issues, and will report out on those at a later date.
Okay. Thank you very much. I'd like to give the City Manager an opportunity to comment on this too, and I want to thank you, Mr. Ganalakis, for the attention that you've given this issue since you've come back to the City, and I congratulate you on the progress that's already being made on this, given everything else that you've got on the go. Would you like to comment as well?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, Obviously the SAMS issue is something outside of management's control, and I think it will be addressed, and I'm happy that they'll go back and take a look at it. I think that is necessary. On the cash handling, as we heard from Director Greenfield, all the recommendations have now been implemented, and of course management now has a responsibility to ensure that those recommendations, procedures are followed by staff, and if they're not, they're addressing them immediately. I know that for a fact. The whole management team of the client service centers are very diligent about this. So yes, there will be occasions where individuals may not follow a procedure, but we're managing that. But I can assure you that the procedures are now in place. And in fact, our finance department, I believe led through our deputy treasurer, is doing a broader review of our cash handling policies across the corporation to ensure that all staff who handle cash are aware of what the policies and procedures and their responsibilities are for cash. So I think we've made great progress on this, and management is doing their due diligence and holding people accountable now.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kanellakis. Any further questions from committee members? We're good. Welcome, Councillor Wilkinson. I'm glad you made your bail. We appreciate you being here. Is the recommendations of the report received? Received. Thank you. I believe there's no in-camera items. Any notices of motions? Any inquiries? No? Okay, under other business, I do have a couple items. Does anybody else have anything else under other business? Just notice to the committee that in the midterm governance report coming forward to FEDCO next week, there's no recommended changes to the audit committee. I believe we as committee members all agree with that, but just for notice, it's in there. The other item would be a question to Mr. Kanellakis, if I may. Can you update the committee on the subject of follow-ups? Can you update the committee on the work underway to resolve the issues identified in the Auditor General's review of the Orga World contract, please?
Yes, Mr. Chair. Orga World is now owned by a company, or it's called Shanks, based out of Great Britain and London, actually. And so there are new representatives now that lead the company, a new CEO and a new regional general manager, vice president. I forget the exact title. So I commenced meeting with their new representatives after I got back in May. We've had several meetings over the summer, and we're discussing the current agreement. We're discussing the issues outstanding in the agreement, trying to resolve those issues, because they tried to appeal the arbitration ruling that the city won, and have now asked for a judicial review, and we've agreed at the beginning of the summer to put that judicial review in abeyance and on hold until we could work through some of the issues. So we're having discussions. I'm not in a position to be able to disclose the outcome of the discussions at this point, because we're still in deliberations with them, but I'll be able to give council, I'm hoping, in the next short-term period, an update as committed to in the audit report.
Thank you very much, and if you could please pass on the message that we don't want to make this an annual thing, asking for updates. We'd like to get this settled. Councillor DeRouche.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and through you, thank you, Mr. Kanellakis, on your hard work on that file, but I understand through the process, and I know it's within what you can reveal to us, but do you have a time frame? Like, this issue has been taking so long, and it's been, the resident of the city of Ottawa really patiently has been waiting, and us as a city council and accountable for this file. We've been hearing, like, it started 2 years ago, then we were supposed to have some info last February. I know it's been lots of back and forth at our legal department, but just in the highlight of what's going on, and I know your expertise with the negotiation with the new company, do you think anytime soon, do we have time frame on what's your expectation? And I'm not trying to pinpoint a date on you, I'm just trying to kind of, within your this conversation, you think could you see the light at the end of the tunnel?
Well, I suppose the only way to answer the question is if we're successful in the discussions we're having at the table with their new executive. If we don't, there still is outstanding litigation. And anytime we're in litigation, as our city solicitor will tell you, that all bets are off in terms of timelines, because that goes back and forth. I'm hoping we can get a resolution. I know they are giving their best efforts to do that. It's a very different climate compared to the former ownership, I can tell you that. They are bringing back proposals. Some of the complication is, because they're based in London, England, they have to go back and forth, and there's some time delays there in terms of when he's back in Canada and all that. But we've been making best efforts to try and have productive discussions. So a time frame, I don't want to put a time frame on it because if it breaks down, I'll update council. It'll go longer. But, I do see a light at the end of the tunnel in terms of whether our path goes legal or our path comes back to a proposal for council.
Thank you, Steve.
Thank you, Councillor DeRusse. Vice Chair Cloutier.
Thank you for that update, Mr. City Manager. So have all the items that were subject of litigation all been put in abeyance and all subject to discussion and negotiation? There is no legal proceedings going on at this time?
That's correct.
And the issues are the capacity of the Orga World and whether they have to take a plant when it was built, and whether they have to take leaves and waste, or...
Mr. Chair, there's a number of outstanding issues. My preference would be that I don't disclose that in public at this point, because the discussions are sensitive, and I want to have respect for the other party in terms of what they need to do to be able to bring back proposals that are satisfactory to the city.
Okay. Thank you, Vice Chair. Can we, if no other questions, can we confirm the confidential minutes that were circulated earlier? Everybody okay with those? Okay, thank you. All right, and motion to adjourn? George, thank you. Okay, meeting adjourned. We have a date for our next meeting, which will be Thursday, the 1st of December, 2016, at 9:30 back here in this room. And I believe, Mr. Auditor General, you'll be tabling your work plan and your annual report, correct?
That's correct, Mr. Chair.
As well as the budget, sorry, yes, as well as the budget. Okay, thank you all.